Tonight, as you know, the Supreme Court reminded the country that even the most powerful president in the world does not get to rewrite the Constitution to win an argument about economics. Tonight, Donald Trump lost, and he lost decisively on one of the defining policies of his political identity: tariffs. For years, Trump has described tariffs as economic magic, a way to punish foreign countries, enrich Americans, and fund the U.S. government all at once. He has insisted that other nations were paying us billions. Actually, he said billions and billions in his word, holding tariffs up as proof not just of policy success, but of personal strength. Today, the Supreme Court rejected the legal foundation behind key parts of that strategy. In plain English, a president cannot simply declare an economic emergency and impose sweeping tariffs on imports whenever he chooses. The court said there are constitutional limits, even for a president who's long argued that there should be none. Trump's response was immediate and swift, and as expected, defiant. Here's a portion of what he said today in the White House briefing room.
The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court. The Democrats on the court are thrilled, but they will automatically vote no. They also are a, frankly, disgrace to our nation, those justices. They're just being fools and lapdogs for the rhinos and the radical left Democrats. They're very unpatriotic and disloyal to our Constitution. It's my opinion that the court has been swayed by foreign interests and a political movement that is far smaller than people would ever think.
Unpatriotic. Trump said he's got a backup plan, by the way. He claimed this ruling doesn't affect his tariffs, and he can make even bigger tariffs, something we'll discuss over the course of the next hour. And that may be the most revealing part of the day, because this was never only about trade. It was about power. Whether a president can bend law to his will when Congress refuses to cooperate. So let's be clear about what these tariffs actually were. They were not tariffs that were debated and enacted by Congress, which is the way it's supposed to work. The Wall Street Journal explains it this way, quote, the case involved two categories of tariffs. Trump imposed one category on virtually every country in the world, ostensibly to repair trade deficits. He imposed the other set of tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China, saying those countries are responsible for the flow of illegal fentanyl into the United States. Many were imposed using emergency or national security authorities, laws that were written for narrow cases and then expanded to cover everyday goods, steel, aluminum, consumer products, even automobiles. Economically, they functioned exactly like taxes. And despite years of political messaging to the contrary, economists across the ideological spectrum agree on one simple fact: Americans paid them. When goods entered United States ports, American importers paid tariffs to the U.S. government. Businesses then absorbed the cost through lower margins, or they passed on higher prices. Either way, the burden landed here at home, which brings us to a contradiction that today's ruling makes impossible to ignore. Donald Trump has claimed that tariffs generated enormous revenue for America, far beyond independent estimates, while at the same time insisting that there isn't enough money available to refund businesses if courts ruled the tariffs unlawful, as they did today. Both of those things cannot be true. Either tariffs produced massive windfalls, or the money was never what he claimed it was. The court's decision forces that reality into the open, and now comes the question that millions of Americans may reasonably ask tonight: who gets paid back? If you bought a car last year and you paid $1,000 more because tariffs had pushed the prices higher, do you get a refund? Probably not. Refunds, if ordered, go to the companies first that paid tariffs at the border: the importers, the manufacturers, the distributors. Whether consumers ever see that money depends on lawsuits, contracts, and competition. Donald Trump said today the litigation this ruling is likely to create could take years. Again, we'll have our experts react to that as well. Economics moves forward quickly. It almost never rewinds. And after years of disruption justified in the name of reshaping global trade, you may ask, what was the measurable result? The U.S. trade deficit, which Trump carries on all the time, improved last year by roughly $2 billion. $2 billion. It's a $30 trillion economy. $2 billion is not transformation. It is statistical noise achieved at enormous economic and political cost. And states absorbed much of that cost. Farmers faced retaliatory tariffs abroad. Manufacturers paid more for materials at home. Port economies endured instability as supply chains lurched from policy to policy. And now states and businesses confront uncertainty again, as courts now try to sort out refunds and companies adjust for the second time in just a few years. So, yes, this was a trade ruling, but it is actually a constitutional moment. Because tariffs are not just trade tools, they are taxes, and the Constitution is explicit about who controls taxation. Congress, not the president. And this case ultimately asked a question larger than tariffs themselves, whether political ambition can expand presidential authority beyond what the Constitution of the United States permits, whether power can be claimed first and justified later. Today, the Supreme Court answered that question. Today, the Chief Justice of the United States said so plainly, writing for the court, John Roberts reminded the country that, quote, the framers did not vest any part of the taxing power in the executive branch, end quote. That sentence reaches far beyond tariffs. It reaches back to the founding principle that concentrated power, especially economic power, is the very thing that the Constitution was designed to prevent. Donald Trump made tariffs a political symbol. He promised they would remake global trade. They would generate vast wealth. They would come at no cost to Americans. Today, the Supreme Court says the Constitution still sets the rules. The Chief Justice chose the Constitution over Donald Trump. And at a moment when many Americans wonder whether democratic institutions still have the strength to restrain power, the court delivered a reminder written into the country's original design. The guardrails are not gone. They held today. There is hope yet for the Republic.